I feel and I hear from stories of patients a little bit of loss in where they are and not going forward with a path. And oftentimes there aren't the stressful. When you ask about their child, it was great. I didn't have my, this and that. Do you bless your stress? Do you bless the past and everything that even childhood traumas and Navy SEAL pushing? Is that like a blessing to you now? Or is it still, man, that was really tough and I'm still dealing with that?
I mean, I would say maybe 22 years ago, my mindset would have been like, whoa. As I started to uncover the stress, what I mean by that is this. When you start opening up your body, right? When you go through a true transformational process, you have to experience all the things that were trapped underneath, right? Mm-hmm. And so as I started to continue to put my efforts towards greater states of freedom, I became more gracious around all the things that I went through. And so maybe some of the judgments and the criticisms and the disapprovals that I had for, teachers or other students or people in my family, those all vanished. They all disappeared. And I looked at all of those as, without those, I wouldn't be who I am today. And if I love who I am, I have to thank all of those people who helped me pile all of those intense amounts of stress, what we would call distress, inside my body, my brain, and my nervous system. And so on one end, yeah, for sure. In this position, yes. While I was going through the things that I was going through, no. Because I was young and I was immature and the periscope that I was looking through, the aperture was too small. And as I started to remove the tension, to decrease the stress, the aperture got larger. And then I started to look at things from above as opposed to look at things from the same level. And that's why for me, freedom is the pathway to happiness. And what I mean by that is that I used to tell people all the time, you can try to find love, but if you're not free and you don't find freedom first, the love that you have is going to turn into codependency. Right. And I wanted to be sure that the path was honest, the path was integrated, the path was secure, and the path was true. So then I started to involve all of these other people to then experiment to see, did it produce the same exact result for them that it did for me? And then once I got that confirmation, I got into an even greater state of gratitude. Because now when you can take, and this is a common saying in America, when you can turn lemons into lemonade, and now I can teach other people to do so, when I look back with a sober mind, okay, outside of fantasy, I have to come to one simple realization that I am a result of my circumstances. And when I get into a greater state of freedom, I'm now a choice. And when I'm a choice, what can I now co-create? And then, for me, it became even more spiritual. Like I went to boarding school for 10 years. We were required to go to a non-denominational church. I was read to from scripture every Sunday for 10 years. At boarding school, there was no choice. Everyone had to go to church. Okay. And then if you fell asleep in church, guess what happened? After church, you had to do all the dishes. Okay. You had to scrub all the pans and all the pots. You had to clean all the floors. You had to clean the kitchen. You had to clean up the dining room all by yourself if you fell asleep in church. So you really had to do whatever you could not to doze off. Because, well, guess what? The other students that are in your student home, they're motivated for you to fall asleep because they want to watch the rerun of the Penn State football game while you're doing the dishes. Mm-hmm. And so I had an understanding of basic spiritual principles, right? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Knock and the door shall be open. Ask and you shall receive. God helps those who help themselves, right? And so those messages were clear because they were repeated again and again and again and again and again and again. And that was a very strong, consistent foundation. What I learned as I started to remove tension, stress, and distortion, I started to have my own orientation towards spiritual principle. And I started to learn about it with context, right? And when you're 7 years old and your mind's in a precognitive state of function, and someone is projecting scripture into your mind, you're doing everything you can to make that reality. And the reality is that isn't reality. The reality is that's a beautiful message, but life isn't simply a message. It doesn't fit in a fixed pattern, right? Life is gray. I was living a very black and white lifestyle. If I did this, I was good. If I did that, I was bad. And my reality was personally subjective, right? And as I started to strip away the tension and the stress and the distortion, the harsh inner critic lost his position. And suddenly he shifted from black and white into the gray. Oh, wow. Maybe the reason why they're late for Thanksgiving isn't because they don't give a shit. Maybe it's that they got a flat tire.
Mm.
Maybe it's because their dog got out this morning and they had to chase them around the neighborhood for 25 minutes and they didn't expect that. And I suddenly became more spacious with myself. And as I became more spacious with myself, I became more understanding with others and I withheld harsh judgments, harsh criticism, harsh disapprovals. And I stepped away from an overly moralizing position into someone that was very spacious and very understanding and very caring and very investigative to what's really going on and how can I assist you. And so I transcended um, religious and biblical messages and philosophies and ideologies into becoming humane. And in order to do that, I had to strip away and prove all of the beliefs that were projected into me. I had to prove them false. And as I proved more than false, I became more gracious. I became more understanding. I became more open minded. I became more empowered. I became more healing, more forgiving, more transformative, more loving, more accepting, and more genuine. And because I was being these ways, I was drawing these ways of functions out of others that I was sharing space and time with. And so the transcendence of that is what helped me get into greater states of freedom, but also discover more about the process of life and how it impacts human consciousness, how it impacts the way we breathe, how it impacts the way we move, how it impacts the relationships we choose, how it impacts what I eat, how it impacts when I choose to sleep, how it impacts what I choose to surround myself with. And it became more evident, it became more clear. I became less confused as I started to delve into this process of reducing lifetime accumulated stress that was individual, yet also generational, familial, and communal. And I started to wake up. And as I started to wake up, I became more inspired to help others wake up and get free from what I call the stress matrix so that I could be in the world, yet I wouldn't be of the world.
Mm.
I could be in the world and yet I would not be of the world. And so I could move through this plane of existence free to make my own choices that were in alignment with my own set of personal ethics, morals, values, and principles that I felt were aligned to my nature. And I started to discover, you know, whenever I would get upset, I would discover, well, what's that really about? And got more in touch with me. I got more in touch with my fragmented inner child who really, all he really wants is affection and attention and love. And the things he's scared of most is affection and attention and love. And so it's been a journey. You know, when you're 3.5 years old and your babysitter wants to teach you to not play with matches, and her way of doing it is to put your hands on a gas stove and give you third plus degree burns, and your skin is so charred that they have to remove skin from your buttocks and your thighs in order to put them on your hands so you can have functional grip and do things that other kids do. And you're in and out of hospitals on a regular basis. And so I had a lot of skin grafts. I spent a lot of time in hospitals. I was gassed a lot. I was drugged a lot. And I was a little boy who was severely depersonalized. I stuttered. I wet the bed. Um, I was, I hid every one of my mistakes. I did everything that I could to avoid punishment, rejection, humiliation, violence, discomfort, and pain. And I started applying those strategies as a very young child to survive my circumstances. And, you know, to be able to transcend all of that in one life, right? Okay. That's quite a trick. Okay. Like it's a trick to be able to do that. And so you can understand why at 29 years old, I'm losing my hearing. At 31 years old, I'm losing my vision. At 33, you can understand why I need a full blown hip replacement. All you have to do is look over the course of my life and go, yep, 2 + 2 = 4, 3 + 3 = 6. If you're in reality and you're willing to have a sober mind. And so all the symptoms that I had, all of the challenges that I had were coming from unresolved trauma, generational stress, and tension, and distortion. And I manifested the expression of those as pain, as discomfort, as confusion, as anxiety, as anger, as self righteousness. As I reduced all of that, I got the exact opposite. Instead of expressing through anxiety, I was expressing through excitement. Instead of expressing through anger, I was expressing through love. Instead of expressing through fear, I was expressing through confidence. Instead of expressing through self-righteous position, I was expressing through righteous behavior, thought and feelings and action. And, this journey that we're on has been my school. It has been my university, right? Pain has been my university to waking up and to becoming more conscious, to becoming more enlightened, to becoming more aware, and then choosing to share, right, with others those enlightenments, those awarenesses, that consciousness, that wakefulness.
Yeah. When I listen to your journey, it's so impactful. And I hear, the words, the stress, distortion and tension and trauma. And it seems that, your story is yours, but so many people carry that themselves.